Make some noise for your host, Kid Copious.
What up, perps? Kid Copious. Back in the bunker. Purple State Party. You know what we're doing here. We're repping America, the center, common sense, and streamers. There we go. All right, let's kick this one right off. Title of today's episode is Oh Brandon. That's a reference to Orwell's 1984. Our hero in that story is Winston. Winston decides that he's had enough of the shit and he wants to join the underground, where he's ultimately betrayed by a man named O'Brien. I think we can all agree that our little Brandon, Mr. Biden, has betrayed us all. He betrayed the moderate Democrats who thought that he was going to be a moderate. He's betrayed the far left extremists on the left because he just simply can't. We can't just shut off gas. We hate to break it to you guys. We can't shut off gas. There's no magic switch to end all racism. Wars are still going to happen. People are going to die of drug overdoses, and criminals are going to commit crime. And no matter who we elect, that's, it's not going to change. Our reactions to things can change. And that's where Biden has been a complete failure. His reactions have been wrong on every account. And we really shouldn't be surprised because, when you make statements like talking about the Supreme Court nomination and coming out before any discussion and just saying it's going to be a black woman. Well, it's the end result that matters to these people. How they get there, how much money they waste, they don't care. It's the end result. What's even worse is even if the end result isn't what we thought it was going to be, the stated goal. So let's just roll with that. The stated goal is all that fucking matters. We're going to show compassion to people. And look what that's led to. The homeless problem, the drug problem, the border problem. Right? We see it. It's right in front of our faces. Most of us aren't far right or far left. We're in the middle here going, what the fuck, guys? Come on. You're supposed to be leading the country. You're not supposed to be manipulating shit for your own gain. So let's get into some bullet points here. A few things that popped up before we start delving into the deeper shit of the day. Biden's Department of Homeland Security has freed 836,000 illegal aliens, exceeding the population in North Dakota. North Dakota is not one of our most populous states. All right, that's fine. 800,000 people who, under our law, aren't supposed to be here and aren't supposed to work. So, what the fuck is the plan? What is the plan? Rich people are just going to hire them under the table? Their friends and their families that are here are going to help them somehow? What? I know from back in my days, working with fire extinguishers, I knew of a guy who would sign a bunch of his extinguisher tags and he would give them to his friends to go out and do the work, and then he would split the money with them. I guess that's ultimately what's going to happen. I don't think they're going to be paying taxes. I think much of the money is going to go back to Mexico, or whichever country they come from, which I can understand. I get that. But, to come to this country, say, to marry somebody, you get the K-1 visa, and you have to have somebody sponsor you for 10 years. For 10 years, somebody has to say, this person will not get public assistance. I will take care of them. That's a good system. Just allowing them to stream across the border is a bad solution. We don't know who's coming across. We don't know what they may represent, what kind of threat they may pose. And before people twist it's not every single one of them. But how many? Out of that, let's say let's say 10% of the people who have been released are going to be up to nefarious purposes, you're still talking about 83,000 more criminals. If the end result or the mission statement is all that matters and the methods don't, this is the kind of shit you end up with. Netflix lost 20% of its value after it lost subscribers for the first time. And a lot of people blame it on the wokeness. And one of the ones that really spurred a lot of it was the He's Pregnant show that they put on. And you know what? This is one of those things where I always say scratch the surface a little bit. Look into it for yourself. You know, one of the mantras that I'm hearing more and more about is the whole idea of be your own fact checker. Because this is a Korean drama. It is a fictitious story. And I watched just the trailer of it, where dude goes in and buys a pregnancy test. The clerk's like, what? And the girls outside that see him leaving with the pregnancy test are pointing and laughing. It's a comedy. It's a spoof. It's not a serious indoctrination into men becoming pregnant. Netflix is losing subscribers because there are a lot of options out there. I, for one, I love BritBox and Acorn. I love my British and Australian television. I love their mysteries. Okay, we don't do mysteries very well here. Most of our mysteries are on fucking Hallmark Channel, and they're not very good. But that's one of the reasons. There's a lot of options out there. I have soccer up the wazoo. In fact, I got to hurry through this right now because my boys in Genoa are playing. Later, I'm going to be watching Ajax. You know? There's other options. That's why Netflix is failing. Not go woke, go broke. That might play a small part of it, but no. That'd be more Disney. Financial records reveal that Biden had $5.2 million in unexplained income. Yeah, some of it is salaries and some's not required in his reports, but it still leaves $5.2 million. It does sort of suggest that maybe he was receiving money. And this is where, as we're going to discuss in a bit, this is where the flow of information needs to be free and unabated by the government. You know, maybe this is wrong. Maybe the money has been explained. Maybe it has. Okay, somebody tell me that right down below, right there in the comments. Tell me, because if this is out there, that's a question that deserves to be answered. The Biden administration is paying millions not to build the wall. See? Do most people know that? Or do most people think that all that money was blown by Trump? Because I'll tell you from what I've been seeing, most people believe that Trump blew all the money and never finished the wall. And that's simply not the case. Texas man offers Elon Musk 100 acres of land to move Twitter headquarters out of San Francisco. I would probably take him up on it. I don't know if you could recruit the best people. I don't, into an area like that. I don't know how remote this property is. But I'll tell you something. Businesses need to stand up to this kind of shit. The stuff that goes on in California, especially, or some of these other liberal states. Seattle, Portland, Minneapolis, New York, Philadelphia. We need to take a stand. If we are, as most people believe, mostly in the middle, then we need to take a stand against the right and the left. We need to stand up to these people. I say it all the time, and I'll keep saying it. I mean, only death will silence me on that. We cannot be slaves to the right and the left any longer. We see what the results are. Unexpectedly, says Ben Shapiro. That caught my attention when it popped up on my notifications. U.S. economy has unexpectedly declined 1.4% annual pace in the first quarter. And I searched because I like to look for the best reactions to things. And so this chick here, Mina, yeah, you're right. It's been expected ever since we learned that Abbott was purposely delayed. Run your mouth. Run your mouth, Rudy Poo. He didn't do that in the first quarter. Okay? So, get your facts straight. Read some dissenting opinions and then look into them and see if they are true. There's an article coming up here that I couldn't believe it. And I did the research and actually found out that there was some reasons for what happened. And, ultimately, though, my initial gut reaction was right. We'll get to that later. So, yeah, I guess the biggest news, we could talk about the ghost of Kiev dying in Ukraine. We could talk about the Ukrainian war. We could talk about what may or may not be on the Hunter Biden laptop. But I think really what we need to talk about first and foremost here is the Ministry of Truth. In the book 1984, called Mini True in Newspeak. And they just served the opposite. In 1984, the ministries of love were in charge of torture. The Ministry of Truth was lies. And that's what we're getting to. We are on the cusp of this 1984 bullshit that we all know about. We all know what horrible results it has. And for some reason, people are willing to go along with something like the Ministry of Truth because it's going to protect their team. Fuck that. I'm Team America. Woohoo! However that song went by South Park. America, fuck yeah. I'm Team America. I'm not Team Republican. I'm not Team Democrat. I'm not even Team Purple. I'm Team America. We need to do what's best for America. And allowing the government to control information in this manner, it's dangerous. These are the people who will insist that 2 + 2 = 5. That's it. The Disinformation Governance Board, Ministry of Truth. And one of the reasons is because of the purchase of Twitter by Elon Musk. Twitter is a place where lots of ideas could be exchanged. You could have your facts checked, so to speak. We can discuss why in the fuck we're not in the middle on a lot of these subjects. Why we have to be radical one way or the other. It's dumb. Yeah. So, it pops up the interesting questions. Will their disinformation czar investigate Fauci's claim that COVID didn't leak from a lab? Are they going to investigate both sides? I doubt it. It seems like since they're going to be appointed by the president, maybe they're going to be beholden to the administration. And then what? What if a Republican gets into office? Are they then going to just shut the whole thing down, hopefully? Or are we going to continue with this government program that then tries to undermine the current administration? I don't know. So who does Biden, Grandpa Joe, being led by all of the entitled white girls who think they have all the fucking answers because they went to college. I was brainwashed and fucked by a professor. I'm smart. Yeah. Just because just because you had sex with your professor doesn't mean he instilled any knowledge in you, baby. You come out with your dumbass ideas. And this one, and again, typical Democrat, a screeching harpy who not exactly, you know what? I'm not going to touch the way she looks, all right? I'm just not. Nina here, who's going to be our new, chief of speech, back on the laptop from Harold, you could read that. She's basically saying that 50 former, the whole lie about the former CIA people and FBI people and national security people who said, no, the Hunter Biden laptop clearly made up by the Russians. Clearly. And she repeats it. I understand, if you design a safe, you bring a safe cracker in to see if he could crack it. using a criminal to stop criminals. That makes sense. So I guess by that logic, somebody who spreads disinformation should be good at weeding disinformation out. I don't know. I mean, there's one thing to use a safe cracker to test your new safe. It's another to let a bank robber guard the vault. See? And he's putting her in because that's going to appeal to the far left. Because the only people who are brainwashed enough to still support Team D, Team Biden, Team Brandon, is far left, extremist-minded people. People who have more... people who have more money than sense. It pisses me off. It really pisses me off when I think about the blatant 1984 reference that's going on here. Elon Musk wants to free the shackles of a public forum, so the government is rushing to create the Ministry of Truth. She has misled us on COVID, Hunter Biden, and Russia. These are the same people who are in trouble now for falsifying all of the Russian collusion against Trump. We know that to be true. We know that Hunter Biden's laptop is real. It's authentic. And it raises serious fucking questions. She has already come out recently now and said that she wants to invoke a certain law that protects women to reach out to online mockery of Democrat Vice President token. It's a threat to democracy and national security. Why? To say that she slept her way into politics? She's about as useless as tits on a boar hog? Huh? Is that what it is? Really? That's some sort of threat to democracy and national security, pointing out that we have one of the most, if not the most, incompetent administration running this country right now. Incompetent. They have not done anything of any value. Nothing. Nothing. Okay? You tell me down below what he's accomplished. Oh, he put mandates in place and saved us all from COVID. No. No, he did not. Okay? And so, of course, his batshit crazy Psaki out there, defends this woman's qualifications, Nina's qualifications. Oh, she wrote a book on the disinformation war. Oh, okay. Really? Okay, I wrote a book about science fiction novel, and my character knew how to fly a spacecraft. Does that mean I know how to fly a spacecraft? No. Those are not qualifications. Okay? We have people out there who would be qualified to walk that line between right and left and actually stop dangerous misinformation. And no, you're going to pick somebody who's an extreme left-winger. Yeah. All because I did that. That's one of the best, man. I would have made that the best of my week, but I needed it right here. Elon Musk's purchase of Twitter is going through. We're already seeing some odd shit happening. Conservatives gaining followers. I think it really is sort of a whole thing about a lot of people, such as myself, who really got tired of the left-wing echo chamber that Twitter is, and the failure of some of these other, Parler and some of these other free speech apps, we came back, and of course we're going to support certain people, and then other people left, and they supported certain people, so you did see that. I'm kind of a wait and see. I want to see what he's going to do. I don't think that a lot of the left's fears are well-founded. I don't think hate speech is going to become a thing on there. Hate speech is hate speech. I hate hate speech. Because Elon, much like myself, is a middle. He's a centralist. He's a little more liberal. I'm a little more conservative, maybe. I don't know. I once scored a 0 on a political spectrum chart. You know, negative 10 was right-wing Republican, plus 10 was right-wing or left-wing extremist or whatever. And I was a 0. Kind of proud of that. But he strongly supported Obama for president. But today's Democratic Party has been hijacked by extremists. You can't argue that. You can't argue with that. That is exactly true. And one of them is AOC, who went off on another rant, to which Elon said, "Stop hitting on me. I'm really shy." This lady is a joke. We all know that. She is just trying to get as much money and publicity as she can out of this job. She doesn't care. Warren, this deal is dangerous for a democracy. Billionaires like Elon Musk play by a different set of rules than everyone else, accumulating power for their own gain. Isn't that what politicians do? Huh, that's funny. She doesn't even see the irony of it. You know, the response of how come you didn't tweet this when Bezos bought the Washington Post? Fair enough. You know, because he's on their team. You see, he's on their team. Okay. Elon, of course, challenged everybody who hates him to stay, because that's what free speech means. I have to take him at his word. So if he's doing it for free speech, great. Free speech is one of the most vital things we have right now, because we can't trust the media. So we need other voices to point out some of these things that we may be missing. Yeah, it's just my opinion. You know, it's what I've seen. And I'm hoping that he holds true to his word. This was one of my favorite Elon's buying Twitter ones. Rob Reiner, guy I used to respect a long time ago, but I lost all respect for him. Now that Elon Musk is buying Twitter, the question for all of us: will he allow a criminal who used the platform to lie and spread disinformation to try to overthrow the U.S. government to return and continue his criminal activity? And if he does, how will we combat it? And John Rich, savage. Calm down, Rob. I'm sure he'll let Hillary stay on. I mean, look, if you want to say that Trump's bad, great. But if you can't then turn around and admit that Hillary's bad, that's the problem I have right now with what's going on in America. We condemn it if it's on another team. We defend it if it's on our team. You really think that's going to work? We're just essentially, half of America is letting one half get away with it, and the other half is letting the other half get away with it. And together, we should all be combating it. We should be pumping the brakes on this bullshit. Here is another one, The Verge, saying Elon Musk, rockstar savior. They said that back in 2015. You know, 7 years later, how do you deactivate your Twitter account? Yeah, run, because Elon owns it. Because it's not. You see, one of the best things that the left was doing was they were taunting people into responses that would get them banned. You know what? I'm going to touch on Sean King really quick here. This guy, I just think he's a piece of shit. I think he's stolen money. I think he's hijacked movements for his own. I think he's pretty much just a waste of space, really. But you know, he's convinced that Elon Musk, being raised in apartheid is a white nationalist. And, you know, he bought Twitter so that we could spread more white hate. Because Sean King is a race baiter. He makes his money off of race. So therefore he has to bait it. Yeah, melted down, canceled his account, you know. Tries to get all tough. Oh, you wish, mofo. Right, sure. He was getting death threats and hack attempts. Right, sure. And then, of course, he resorts to, you know, the calling card of the left now. Just call the person a Nazi. That's all they have. He should get kicked off. Obama argues unregulated social media is a threat to democracy, calls to pick a side. Social media banned the story on Hunter Biden's laptop. Okay? Social media did everything in its power to influence the last election. And now, suddenly, okay. Right. They should be regulated by the government. Right. Yes. Online disinformation is threatening the future of freedom around the world. How in the fuck is that even remotely possible? How is that remotely possible? It's one thing when people were saying that disinformation was causing people to get sick and possibly die of COVID. Okay, that made sense. All right. But what disinformation is he talking about? Because the major disinformation that has been seen on social media has been the cover-up of Hunter Biden's laptop. That's what's been silenced. The voices that are critical of some of the wackadoodle transgender ways of doing things out there. The whole, if they identify, we're going to put the guy in a women's prison. We'll see later how that turns out. Online, they call the laws in certain states to be suppressing the black vote, yet there's no evidence that that's true. And their states, such as Delaware, where Biden's from, have the same exact laws. Okay, where's all that? Where's all the Russian collusion with Trump? That was all disinformation. So I don't really understand why all of a sudden Elon Musk buying Twitter is the downfall of democracy, when he's more than likely the one who's going to allow us to stop the flood of this. They are the ones who influenced the last election, you know? There was a guest on MSNBC that basically was talking about Elon buying Twitter and said you could secretly ban one party's candidate. Secretly turn down the reach of their stuff and turn up the reach of something else. That's exactly what Twitter and Facebook did. They fact-checked all of Trump's positive accomplishments so that they did not look good, so they did not look believable, and then they buried the Hunter Biden laptop. A lot of people out there say that that's no big deal, but one poll suggests it is. That 10% of Biden voters wouldn't have voted that way. And who knows how many that number actually represents. Remember, it's just a poll. You could say, no, it wouldn't have affected me, when it would have. You could just lie on a poll. That's one of the problems with polls. But they do give us a gauge. So we do know that people were concerned about the Hunter Biden laptop. We do know that it shows some questionable shit. All right. There's some Ben Shapiro. So anyhow, sum this one up. Basically, Ben's point here is that they claim that Twitter was fair, but now they're worried that Elon Musk is going to change that. So they themselves are admitting that social media was bent one way. Okay. Donald Trump Jr. chimed in with, seems shadow banning is yet another right-wing conspiracy theory that was 100% true. See, again, they're really the ones who are guilty of the misinformation. COVID misinformation, you could say it's predominantly Republican, but I don't know that that's, a deliberate attempt by the Republican Party versus the laptop, the Russian collusion stories. Whatever. And we know this because you can track donations. 99% of Twitter employees made donations to Democrats. Of the political donations that were made, 99% went to the Democrats. Okay? Musk had a great quote on that. For Twitter to deserve public trust, it must be politically neutral, which effectively means upsetting the far right and the far left equally, he wrote on Twitter. Hey, Elon, if you're out there, man, Kid Copious, Purple State Party. Can you kick me down? Little money. Get my pack started here, man. I want to promote middle of the road candidates. I want to piss all over the far right and the far left. I really do. And my dick's big enough. All right. Move on really quick here. I'm not against cleaning up the planet. I am not against finding alternative power supplies. But we know that electrical, wind, solar, those things, we're still a little ways off. And we're acting as though they've been working perfectly for decades. And they're not. And this study that came out of NCAP, right there, found some surprising results. When you measure certain metrics, an electric car comes out on top. Well, okay, that's greenhouse emissions. Okay, how am I? Obviously, an electric vehicle has less emissions than a gas vehicle. Huh. But what about the true cost? The primary energy demand, which calculates the total amount of energy required over a similar cycle of manufacture, usage, and recycling. The winner of that, my friends, was the Skoda Octavia, a diesel-powered vehicle, and a state car. And why? Because when you factor in the environmental cost of even producing the batteries, there's a lot of negative, bad pollution. Wow, negative, bad pollution. That's an interesting phrase right there. Should put that on a fucking t-shirt. But that's what we need to look at. Simply saying that electric vehicles are the way to clean up the planet and running with that story when it's not true is exactly the problem we have. We have hybrids. Those might be a little bit better. There is hydrogen, although hydrogen for some reason, I don't know. Diesel seems to do all right. It produces a lot of pollutants, though. So what is the answer? What is the answer? Maybe a diesel hybrid? Maybe that would be it? Maybe not building all of these ginormous vehicles that we do? I don't know. There's solutions out there, but it doesn't look like electrical is going to be the way. Because right here, Fortune magazine, a top lithium expert agrees with Elon Musk. There's not enough lithium to meet the booming demand. U.S. only produces 2% of lithium. Most of it is in South America and Australia, with China largely in control of global supply chains. So, great. We're going to give our biggest enemy control over our battery production. Oh, Jesus Christ. I got that one twice. One of the other problems is that a battery factory could be built in 2 years, and it could take up to a decade to bring on a lithium project. It's not easy. Nickel is the same way. Another critical component of most lithium-ion batteries is nickel. And Russia was one of the top producers. Again, we're going to create a vehicle that runs on power that we get from our two biggest enemies, two of the biggest polluters on this planet. We're going to give them control. General Motors is no longer making battery packs for the Chevy Spark. They only sold about 7,400 of them. So, mainly in California, Oregon, and Maryland. And they're really thinking now that because of the cost of trying to replace the batteries, it would be cheaper for GM just to buy the cars back. And that's the problem, again, that we have with electrical vehicles, the supply chain, the fueling processes. We have all of these issues. I think electric vehicles, especially Tesla, I don't think they were designed to replace gasoline cars. I think they were an alternative. I think it was a hole that was created by Elon Musk and other, entrepreneurs. And for some people, it's fine. Some people could park it in a garage. They can afford the charger. They could charge it overnight, and then they could drive their electric vehicle. More and more people should be able to afford them, but it's not going to be the solution. It's just trading one issue for another issue. But if you have a spark, you're going to need another car. Ford also lost money because of electric vehicles. They just don't sell that well. We're not at that point. We're rushing the gun, as they say. We're probably a decade or more away from being able to even come close to putting any large percentage of electric vehicles on the road. Our infrastructure is not set up for it. So let's make cleaner burning cars. We have the technology. We don't need other countries for a lot of this stuff. We can do it ourselves. Batteries, that's a big stumbling block. Them damn batteries and the fact that it's China and it's Russia. Well, let's look at some more extreme left bullshit. A transgender inmate gets 7 more years after raping a woman in jail. So he only gets 7 years for that? Wow, the assault on women continues. 7 years. He rapes a woman and he gets 7 years. But why is he even there? New York City allows transgender inmates to choose where they're held based on their identity. So, all the men can identify as women and go over to the women's prison. We could have an empty men's prison if they just all say they're women. And we're going to go along with that. I'm not anti-trans in any way, shape, or form. I'm not bothered by them. I have no phobia over them. I am completely comfortable around them. Okay? I know this for a fact, that I'm completely comfortable around them. It does not bother me. But there has to be a level of common sense. And this is the kind of stuff. See? In a related story, hospital admits trans patient may have raped woman after denying any men were there. UK Parliament member says. See, this is Europe. And we could look to Europe for a lot of the transgender issues. That's why, for example, underage transgender medications and surgeries were stopped in Sweden. And so that's why people like myself are against it. Sweden had 22 years to prove that it was not healthy. It did not work. Hey boy, we got a lot to unpack this one. Wind power's colossal market failure. Yeah, see, this is the price right here of manufacturing. It's just getting more expensive, and it's not going to result in cheaper energy for people. Could be doing nuclear, folks. And one of the reasons why it's gotten so expensive, federal planning and local approvals. They don't want giant windmills. You can try to put them out in the ocean. You'll have environmentalists argue. You can try to put them out in the middle of nowhere, and somebody's going to get upset. Nuclear. Another one. Disney finally had to give up on their fight in Florida. Whatever. Disney's just a snake eating its own tail at this point. They're alienating the people who support them to show support for people who don't really buy into, they're not their core consumer. The core consumer of Disney is, okay, whatever. Let's just move on. It's just getting stupid at this point. When I start looking at these woke failures, Omar here claims that DeSantis' election police will intimidate, harass, and punish poor and black voters. Right. Okay. Sure. What are you doing to help the poor and black voters of your district? Nothing. Not a damn thing. You're doing this. You're raising your profile. You're squawk boxing about this kind of shit. They're not going to do that. It's to investigate voter fraud, whether it's needed or not. One of the things about voter fraud is it's very hard to prove. And we base most of our stats on convictions. So if somebody's investigated for election fraud, but they're not convicted, they didn't commit election fraud. That's how it goes. That's how crime stats work, too. If they don't convict you of murder, then you didn't murder anyone. Whether you did or not. I mean, O.J. Simpson is not two more murders in the books. Ah, boy. Yeah, one of these days there won't be BLM in my show. There's a lawsuit coming out of Indiana. They're hiding their finances. More than likely up to no good. And again, we need to be able to speak out about this and not be labeled as a hate crime or disinformation for speaking out against a charity that uses race as its bait and then just steals the money and buys houses with it. That's what we have with them. Okay, here's one. Never thought I'd have to talk about this, but Massachusetts says kids uncomfortable sharing a bathroom with transgenders need counseling. A 7-year-old. Oh my God. Oh my God. Cases cited included a 7-year-old trans second grade student. Okay. All right. Well, let's just assume that person truly is trans. But for them to say that they flat out say it. Concerns for safety are not a reason to prevent trans students from picking whatever bathroom or locker room they feel like using, based on their identity, what they identify as. I could say I'm a woman, go into the locker room and get completely naked, and if the girls in the locker room have a problem with it, they need counseling. Does that make sense at all? At all. And they say that oh my God, they say it's to protect the trans student. But now this is the dude that's whipping out his dick in front of the girls. Like, I don't really understand how that is keeping anybody safe. But that's not your concern. Your concern is the mission statement. Mm-hmm. Google's going to have speech police, because why not? The government's going to have speech police. Google might as well have it. That's, Oh, man. Hold on, I got a little... There we go. Okay, well, really quick. Senator Kennedy pins inflation largely on excessive government spending. This was a very interesting article because he is a Republican. But he puts them all on blast. He talks about how they tried to pass a bill that would look into government checks being sent to dead people. Okay? And they get cashed. So there's obviously fraud. But his opposition came from the Republicans. They talk a good game on fiscal responsibility, but it's like going to heaven. Everyone wants to go to heaven. Nobody is quite ready to make the trip. See, this is what happens when we defend our team no matter what. The government is wasting a lot of our money. A lot of it. And the part that's troubling is that their solution is higher taxes. And it all trickles down. It all trickles down to us, the average working American. We have to pick up the slack. Because when you tax the upper, they raise the price on the lower, and we pay for it. And we don't need more taxes. We need more oversight. We need those people who are cashing checks fraudulently, busted, and the money returned, and the money spigot turned off. Kennedy says, it's as if Congress thinks the money, this budget, was funded by leprechauns. Yeah. And really, it has become my biggest frustration since I've come up here. There is no appetite, none, zero, zilch, nada, to try to reduce spending and reduce waste in the budget. That's coming from both sides. That's one of the things about common sense that is so important to me and to the nation, is that common sense bleeds into the way you look at money being spent. But common sense. If there are checks being cashed fraudulently, figure out who's doing it and stop it. Turn them off. Turn off the cash spigot. California gave out billions of dollars in scam money during COVID. The U.S. government lost hundreds of billions of dollars that were just scammed. Scammed by foreign nations even. And what's being done about it? We're starting the ministry of truth. Wow. We're opening up our borders. Wow. We're telling girls that don't like to see men undressing in their locker rooms, you need help. What? We need to take control of this country. You know what? Not even going to mention that. There was a guy who basically hammered a guy to death and was caught pretty much red-handed, even confessed to it. First he lied to the police, but eventually confessed and tried to claim self-defense, but the crime scene didn't support that. But when I read that the woke DA from the Smollett case wasn't charging this guy, I found it hard to believe, and I wanted to find out what it was. And I looked into it, and it turns out that he did claim self-defense, so maybe that's what she was basing it on. But the police have since said, no, they've overridden the prosecutor in this case, because this guy's been on parole for an attempted murder and domestic battery, and the crime scene doesn't add up to self-defense. Yeah, so whatever. And get into my favorites of the week here. Man, this is a long one. Sorry about that. With the threat of power shortages looming, Newsom is going to attempt to delay the closure of our largest energy source in California, the Diablo Canyon nuclear plant. He's going to use some money that Biden's setting aside to fix, renovate old nuclear reactors. Why? Because nuclear is the only thing that's going to work. If we are not going to use fossil fuels and coal and such like that to make our electricity, nuclear is the only option that we have right now. It is the only reliable, sustainable option. Okay? Everything else is just fraught with just too many complications. Oh, God. Got this one from my buddy. Really sums up the timeline of, the Democrats and how they were against the pharmaceutical companies. They were against war, and they were against corporations. And now, in 2022, we've seen them go mad-ass crazy for the vaccination. They've supported a war, I guess. I guess we all sort of support Ukraine in this one. But more surprisingly is that they are backing corporations now. And censorship. Whatever. This was Elon Musk's cartoon explaining where he stands politically. And if you notice, he doesn't move, and the right doesn't move. It's the left that moves so far away from center that Elon is now on the right side of center. Yeah, I think a lot of people are this now. Oh, God. We're going to skip that one. Female Thor keeps picking up rent instead of hammer and asking, is this it? Female Thor, really? That's Norse mythology, and you're just going to change it? Okay, that's fine. Conservative unsure if he has no followers because of shadow banning or because of all his tweets suck. Right there with you, buddy. Zelensky insulted by Biden's offer of only $33 billion in weapons when he gave the Taliban $86 billion. Yeah, we know. I mean, the Afghan pullout was the first sign that we were all right. Biden sucks. Yeah, there you go. Biden administration announces student loan forgiveness will be paid in Kohl's cash. I don't know how they just picked the right thing like that, man. Kohl's cash, really? I'm not even going to touch that right now. Government Disinformation Board determines all criticism of Government Disinformation Board to be disinformation. Yeah, that sounds about right. Citing harsh work environment, COVID resigns from Kamala Harris. These are good, man. Yeah. Eccentric billionaire accomplishes more for free speech in one afternoon than Republicans have in decades. And this is Babylon Bee, a conservative site. You see what's starting to go on there? Yeah. People are starting to realize the answer's in the middle. Okay? I have my religious values balanced against more liberal ways of thinking with more of a conservative approach to how we deal with the things over here. Man, I'm losing my mind on this right now. I really am. We're really starting to pull towards the middle. And I just want to live long enough to see both parties, or at least one of these parties, just fucking implode and, some sort of centralist party rise up. So, Elon, that's the next thing you can do, buddy. Yeah. If you need a foot soldier, if you need a sergeant, man, I would love to be that sergeant. I know I'm not even going to be considered for the job. But that's my dream, man. That's my dream. Centralist uprising. Democrats continue proud tradition of wearing masks to show political affiliation. And you know what? They are the real racists. They're the ones that claim that they're going to help, and all they do. You know what? That's just it. That's 1984. That's the same thing. All the ministries are the opposite of what they say they are. The ministry of truth is the ministry of lies. The Democrats say that they're there to help. So what's the opposite of help? Harm. They're the ones who just want to keep a tight leash on the necks of the black folks because they're losing everybody else. So they're going to have liberal white chicks and black folks as their voting base. Oh, and they're hoping, newly arrivals to this country, through the open borders and then probably through some sort of amnesty program. That's the only way they're going to get voters because everybody else is starting to realize that they're just their head is fucking full of squirrels. I don't really have something to leave you with this time. Thought I did, but sometimes, the mind is one of those things. I think we need to wait and see what's going to happen with Twitter, but I hope for the best on it. It seems like it's just a throwaway type of article. It's just a social media app. But it is now becoming one of the few places where you can scratch around and get to the truth on some of these things. To remove the bias and the slant. To force you to think for yourself. Because there are a lot of issues right now that are being covered up. And first and foremost is the idea of who's spreading the disinformation. On one side, you had people who might have been spreading some bad info on COVID. I don't really think it was that evil. But on the other side, oh God, you have the people who buried the Hunter laptop. And that to me is the most egregious crime. COVID, okay, so ivermectin didn't work. But guess what? The laptop was real. And our concerns about Biden and his party's agenda are real. So, folks, you got to vote. You got to vote Republican for the plain, simple fact that they're at least keeping, for the most part, their extremists under wraps. Whereas on the Democrats, they're allowing the extremists to run the show. Not a great episode, but I love y'all. Copious out.